Hey, welcome to Creative Blog. We're your hosts, V.
And Ian. We talk shop with other creatives in animation and comics about things like finding your artistic path or process of making art. All the while, we doodle in magma. It's great.
We ask people on our social medias if they had specific topics they want us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts. By the way, if you haven't yet, check out our Patreon and subscribe to our channel.
Today, we have with us one of the greats, ADAM ROSETTE. Woo! Director, storyboard artist, head of story. Did you ever do revisions? We're going down the line.
I don't think I have, now that you've asked me that.
PA, were you ever in production?
Not yet, but
yeah, it can be, it can kind of come full circle. You never know.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you so much, man, for coming.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. This is going to be so much fun,
I probably should have prepared your long list of credits.
Oh, yeah, no, that was perfect. In fact, calling me one of the greats was already too nice.
Oh, come on.
No, you're a storytelling powerhouse. We were lucky to work together on a feature over at Sony. That was sort of our first gig, but what was your first gig in the industry? If you or actually, let's even go back further.
Yeah.
I want to hear about your interest in art in general. Were you one of those kids that picked up a pen at like 2 years old? Or did it come
so
later?
this is going to be an interesting one. And before I jump into it, you know what's interesting, Ian? V also helped out for a short period of time on Goat, so I think all three of us.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Done our little bit on Goat. But yeah, to get back to the main question, always interested in art. It was always sort of their second nature, part of like my everyday thing. So I had a very different childhood than probably most people. From the time I was born till the time I was about 8, somewhere between 8 and 9 years old, I actually lived in like there's no other word for it than like an artist commune.
Oh, that's cool.
Interesting.
Whoa.
Or like I guess it was like Section 8 housing in Patterson, New Jersey, that you had to be an artist to basically get the privilege of living there for less money. So all of the people that lived in my building, all of the people that I interacted with, they were all artists. So it was like a painter next door who he painted realistic paintings of Star Trek.
Oh,
wow. I thought that was the coolest thing. It was like, oh, you've got like this amazing picture of Picard as the Borg, and it's so cool. And his apartment always smelled like skunk. And,
okay. And he was a skunk collector.
I was like, why does it always smell like skunk?
You just had exotic pets.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you get into it? Was that from your parents?
Yeah. So my mom, in a way, it's kind of all connected, right? My mom, like, it was her dream to be an artist, and she's a painter now, and she wanted to go to art school. She wanted to go to Pratt. And
nice.
It was like her dream, but her father, my grandfather on that side, like many old people, did not think that pursuing the arts was a worthwhile career field, and especially for women of that day.
Right.
It was like, oh, I think that should be reserved for wealthy elites and scholars and whatever. So my mom joined the Air Force.
Whoa.
And because the Air Force was going to pay for her education. And so she went there, and she was delivering medical supplies, and she was a nurse in the Air Force.
Oh,
and
wow.
that's where she met my dad. And my dad was, I don't know if you had this when you were in high school, but there was like a band that would come around, and they'd be like, hey, we're in the Army, we're in the Air Force. band. Do you guys like that?
I don't know if I had that, but that's I do remember.
That's so funny. So it's not ROTC. It's just like specifically they play music.
Like, yeah, we go around everywhere and try to convince people that like the armed forces are cool. Like, hey kids, you like the X-Men theme song? We know it, who wants to go fight for their country?
No, what's funny? I remember getting a call from an Army recruiter in my senior year of high school, and I was like, I'm an artist. And they were like, you can draw in the military. And I was like, what?
What?
I had the same. Okay, so I'll get into I'm in a freestyle.
Oh yeah, no, go for it.
Okay, so my dad was in the Air Force, my mom was in the Air Force. That's how they met. I was a whoopsie baby. They split pretty much right after, and I felt like my mom sort of put her dreams to the side so that like I could have a pretty normal life. So she went back to school, became a high school art teacher so she could be close to it. And now that she's retired, she is a badass. She is a painter. She has this, again, she lives in sort of this artist housing in Massachusetts, close to Mass MoCA. And she does all these residencies and sells paintings and does all these. She's exactly who she was meant to be. And it's the greatest thing ever. But
that's amazing.
Wow,
art was around my...
That's an amazing story. Wow, yeah. That's the episode right there.
Yeah. So that was my, it was always around as a kid, art.
Interesting.
And then so my dad was in the Air Force, my mom was in the Air Force, my grandfather was in the Air Force. So when I was in high school, my phone kept ringing off the hook. Because they were just like, and like for some reason, I guess like your privacy, your data, like your school activities were not considered private at the, so like I played some sports or I was in like the, weight training club or whatever, and just trying to get things on your extracurriculars, or I had a friend who did it, and the phone would ring, and my family was too poor. I didn't even have caller ID. It was just like a landline, and go, and I pick it up, and it was the same guy. His name was Sergeant Glue, like
Glue,
Elmer's glue. Yeah, and he would call
kind of
me
clingy.
like, yeah, hey, I'll stick to you yet, kid. But Sergeant Glue, he would call me and on the regular, and one time, he'd be like, I see, you played football, and I did, before I realized like I'm totally bad at this.
Yeah,
like, this is not. I should not be doing this. Like That's
just a little scary too, because you're like, I see you're playing football right now.
Okay, yeah,
exactly. And so the question that you had, Ian, was, they were like, oh, there's drawing in the military or whatever,
right.
And so he called, and I was like, no, I want to go to art school. And he legit said to me, and I still remember this, he's like, well, how does your mom feel about that? How does your dad feel about that? How does your grandfather feel?
No.
Do they know that you're a disappointment? It's like, this is wild, like
you're like,
and,
wow.
I could just hang this phone up. We never talk again.
I could. You have my number and all of my personal information, so I might not want to do that.
Damn. Well, he knew at that point that he'd lost.
He had. Oh my God! I look down and these drawings are beautiful. There's like shading and like, what am I doing?
No. You're
telling a great story about being watched by a sergeant.
But I think art for me never seemed unachievable because it was all I knew.
Right.
I think that's a pretty important thing, and my dad being, a musician who I was a little bit estranged from, until my teenage years, and my mom just having this passion for the arts and growing up in a hippie sort of arts commune. I'm going to tell you, this is going to blow your mind again. I wasn't allowed to watch TV as a kid.
Oh, that's interesting.
I was going to say, where did you rebel against your parents, and now you're like, I'm making movies.
Like, now all I do is look at a screen, and it's bad for my health. And you were right, and I'm sorry, Mom.
You were right.
And now I spend my days rotting the brains of America's future youth.
Exactly.
Take that, Mom.
I think about this a lot because my dad used to be like that. Well, no, he was a kid. He was like, don't watch TV. Like, read books instead. Don't like sit in front of a screen. And then it's like, yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm like, okay. He doesn't say anything about it now, I think.
Yeah.
But...
So you had a bunch of my classmates on this show, and I was like laughing about it because I can remember. So two of them, Ian Jones-Cordy and Danny Hines, were like two of my classmates that I like literally spent my entire college years with.
Wow, no way. So cool.
And we got to talk. We're SVA alum. We got to shout it out.
Oh, we got to shout out SVA. They just came by Sony. I gave them the tour of a lifetime.
Oh, what? Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome. Sorry.
What was I saying about
SVA
and Danny?
Oh. For our listeners, Ian Jones-Cordy's episode is number 35, and Danny Hines' episode is episode 165.
So I remember going to SVA where Ian and I both went to college, and going there and just being like, oh my gosh, these students are so far ahead of everything that I could possibly ever like. Both Danny and Ian went to SVA pre-college, and they knew animation techniques, and they had like style, and they understood like in betweening and timing and all these things, and they would go like, oh yeah, of course I remember this obscure episode of The Simpsons, or of course I know this and like I just felt so incredibly behind because I just grew up in a hippie household where I was like, yeah, I know all about Cezanne and like Degas and like and basically just read comic books my whole childhood instead of watching TV. And that's where kind of the love began for drawing, was just I just copied everything from comic books and read everything from the Disney Carl Barks stuff to a lot like John Romita Sr. is my favorite comic book artist of all time. And that kind of old school Marvel stuff and how to draw the Marvel way. Oh yeah, it's kind of how I learned to do everything. As a kid, it was like I was doing bad versions of it, but I was like, yeah, everything's muscular and there's a box and I can figure that out. Yeah, awesome. that feels right. And yeah, sure, it's horrifying to look back at, where it's like everyone's angry and they look like they're made of Slim Jims.
Yeah, little tiny feet.
Don't look at my art. That was before I discovered anime, and then was like, oh, other things could be cool. And then I had my other Dragon Ball Z face. But
more muscular, angry man.
I was like, this is great. Look, they're muscular and angry, but pointy.
Yes, so pointy.
Difference.
So pointy.
So pointy. Like, they've got pointy hair. It's totally different. It's not the same at all. I don't even know how we got on this topic.
But that's interesting because, like, you didn't grow. So when did the connection between art and what you enjoyed in animation? Because as an SVA alum myself, Ian Higginbotham, not Ian Jones-Cordy, I went for illustration and cartooning. But you went into the animation program, correct?
I did, yeah. So the interesting thing about asking a 17-year-old what they want to do for the rest of their life.
Oh, yeah. They got it all figured out.
All I did was read comic books and draw and play guitar. Like, those were my two passions in life, right? And, I'm actually okay as a guitar player. Like, I was actually seriously considering going to Berklee School of Music in Boston.
Nice.
Have you ever composed like a piece of music for anything that you like pitched as a board artist?
Yeah, actually I still get residual checks for some songs I wrote on the Peabody and Sherman show and things like that, where like I composed and wrote all the music and not just lyrics, but like so
that's awesome.
Still inherently part of who I am, but I graduated high school when I was 17. And so I was 16 when it was like, figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life now, kid.
Oh, I guess because in America you can kind of like if you like stack your curriculum, you can graduate early. Is that what you did? You like put all of the like your you filled up your high school first couple of years to the brim so that you could graduate early?
No, I think it was a mixture of two things. The first thing was that I was a younger kid, so my mom had two boys,
Mm-hmm.
and the second part was she was like, "I don't want you in the house anymore. Like I'm good." So like
Time to go.
I don't you know uh, I got pushed ahead as a kid, so I was a grade sooner than I should have been.
Wow.
So yeah, I was kind of always like a little bit smaller, a little bit a
Mm-hmm.
lot younger. I didn't even really have my driver's license until I like just about graduated high school, which was kind of crazy. So I was like, hey, can I bum a ride everywhere? Which was fine. But
That's
Oh
cool.
my gosh, that's
how did I get into this topic? So yeah, I was 16, and they were like, "What do you want to do for the rest of your life, kid? Figure it out." And what an overwhelming burden to go like.
mm,
Right.
Some people spend their entire lives trying to answer that question, and you know, your job does not equate to your worth or
mm-hmm.
to your purpose on this planet, but it sure seems like it when you're 16,
Yep.
and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and you start to go, well, geez, what if I make a misstep here? Especially coming from a family like mine was like, I'm never going to have money to do anything else. So like,
Right, right.
what am I going to do? And I kind of was like, well, I don't want to swear, but it's like, I don't know how to do anything else besides draw and play guitar. And actually my first choice was, I'm going to play guitar. I think I might be better at that than.
Oh, interesting.
And my mom was like, remember my dad in the Air Force band there? She was like, yeah, no, that's what your dad did, and you're not turning into him. She got me out of it. And for better or for worse, she was right. For many reasons, I actually think I'm more suited for the path that I went down. And she is ultimately the most supportive person I've ever had. She would have supported me if I wanted to do that, but she talked me
Do you think she
into.
saw something in you, in how your art, that she was like, but there's something here? I mean, obviously, she would have supported whatever passion, but
I think she must have, because as a high school art teacher, she sees kids who were my
Mm-hmm.
age,
oh, right,
doing
right,
this all
right.
the time. So she must have been like, no, you probably could, make a living at this if you wanted to. And also, she had spent her whole life, wanting to get that opportunity to have, to get the opportunity to try her hand at being an artist full time. So I think in a way, how could she argue with that? Or it's like, I
Right.
want to do the thing you want to do. And she's like, yeah, that's fair. I want to do that too. She's like, I just have
Yeah,
to,
exactly.
and so, in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm doing my dream for myself, but also continuing my mom's. And it's kind of sweet, and no spoilers, but there's something that I relate to a lot about that and have tried to put into a movie that I may or may
Yeah.
not be.
I was gonna say, oh, I
Does
can
that
see
sound familiar?
some character.
What could he be talking about?
There's a character arc here. that
So it's,
resonates.
I always find that like people, it seems like a lot of people in animation do have this connection to music, and I don't know, I always associate it with timing. Both
Yeah.
sort of rely on timing, and there's something that maybe itches that part of the brain. I mean, I was in like some bands in high school, and I like to go, belt it out at karaoke every once in a while.
I've actually seen that. So.
I've seen you too. I've seen all both of you, and it's great. But it is interesting to see that connection. So you just sort of like. So your sort of like first day in, or first year at SVA and SVA's animation program, were you like, oh, this is it, this is great, or did it take you a little bit to like find passion for it?
I feel like, and also I've seemed like I've forgotten how to draw raws over here because I'm just talking, but it took me a minute because I felt like an outsider, and I felt like an outsider coming in because I had none of the cultural references that people do. This is what I was going to try to say earlier. I remember Ian and Danny both stopping me dead in in my tracks one day at Ian Jones Quarry, not Ian Higginbotham.
Yeah, we missed each other.
But all the best Ians went to SVS, by the way. But they stopped because I said something that they had never heard a human being say out loud before, which is, I have never seen a Goofy movie. And they were like,
that's so funny.
What? What? And they were like, okay, so tonight when we're gonna do the overnight, we're gonna bring a copy on VHS of a Goofy movie.
That's amazing.
We're gonna sit here and you're gonna watch Powerline, and you're gonna watch a story about a son and a dad who bond over the most 90s. And I was like, okay, here we go. And so a lot of college for me was I mean, it should be learning,
yeah.
But it really, I felt like I was kind of behind the curve to a lot of people on this idea that like they pretty much came out of the womb and they were like, I'm going to be an animator. I know what I'm going to do. I didn't really figure it out until I was already taking classes in college.
Yeah.
I hope that's helpful to somebody out there,
Oh, 100%.
I think this is relatable for a lot of people because it is relatable for me as well because I was like really young when I got into Gobelin. I was one of the youngest in my class, and where people were like a couple of years ahead of me, so it was definitely like, oh man, like I don't know if you had this experience, Adam, but like being the person that's like pretty good at drawing to like all of a sudden being like, oh, I need to catch up.
I feel like everybody had that a little bit where you walk in, you're the best in your in your little group in high school, and then you show up and there's all these all the other kids were the best in their high school, and you're like, oh shit.
I wasn't even the best. I wasn't even the best in my high school. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, same actually. I was like, maybe number 3, 4.
It's funny. Speaking of high school, like, because my like I grew up on like food stamps, welfare kid, didn't have a family that had a lot of money, and so I never had any pictures in like my high school yearbooks. And when I graduated, they put me on the In Memoriam page.
What?
Because they thought I was dead.
Oh my god!
So
look at me now.
I actually have my high school. I mean, I can pull it out. You want to find this for you? Want me to fact check me live on air?
Here. Oh my
god!
This is my high school yearbook.
That's the kind of stuff that you can't make it up. It's so crazy.
You're like,
In Memoriam.
In Memoriam. I'm on the In Memoriam page. And I'm going to pull it out for you right now. They had like the superlatives, right? Like, I think that's the word for it. Like, most likely to do this, most likely to do that, best this, best smile, whatever else. And even though they were like, he's dead, I actually showed up on the, here's the In Memoriam page. And whose name is that right there, y'all?
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
This is rude. You know what? You revived. You came back.
Honestly, that gives you a Jesus point.
I'm like Harry Potter. I'm like Harry Potter. I'm the boy who lived.
You are, yeah.
and it's funny because now some of them are like, oh yeah, he's off making a movie and what. And I'm sure some of them are like, didn't he die? So out of the yearbook, aren't you dead?
That's so
Dude,
no, I was also runner-up most musical and runner-up most artistic. So no, I was not. I was not the best.
That's so
But I'm
funny. Is that
alive.
okay
Yeah.
if I ever write a story about this?
I've been saving that one. That one.
It's literally out of like a 2000s like high school comedy.
Yeah.
I'm dead because I didn't get my high school photo because I didn't have the money for it. This is fun.
I'm alive.
That's so
Screaming.
funny.
I'm still here. So yeah.
I want to jump forward a little bit in time so you were in college and everything, meeting all the great people, and how was it like for you finding your first gig, and what was it?
Yeah, so I I think like a lot of people, I was scared to make that leap into being a professional, right? Because that meant like, oh, like it's terrifying. Am I good enough? Is the question, you know? I know.
Right.
And I had seen a bunch of classmates around me, namely the same two people I already mentioned
Yeah.
a bunch of times, had like gotten internships and they went to go work at Nickelodeon. I'm sure it probably came up on their episodes. I haven't listened. I'm sorry. No, but
How dare you? No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
they went to go work for one of our professors, you know, in the like the consumer products department, right? And then we also worked at this little company called Noodle Soup Animation. But before all of that, like I worked as an art restorer. So
Oh, cool.
I had gotten a job at a small private business that would restore paintings for galleries and museums. And so I went through an 8-month long apprenticeship where I learned how to restore oil paintings and worked on stuff like Kandinsky, Kamrowski, Bolatovsky, Jackson Pollock.
That's crazy.
And
That is so you touch these paintings?
I'd not only touch them, I would be painting on them.
That is crazy. That is so crazy.
And, you know, sometimes forging a signature on the back. Like Jackson Pollock doesn't sign his that's right. Pollock usually he signs the back of his canvas, right? So we would take a tracing. If you had to fix the canvas itself and reline it, relining means you're basically adding beeswax to another piece of canvas to the back of it, so that you can put a new stronger canvas on back and then fix any rips or holes. Gotcha. And you know, I was a reliner and I would do minor color touching because I was the apprentice who worked my way up. And the job was so insanely stressful. You know,
you can't mess it up. You can't be like the little lady in Spain who like restored the Jesus.
Like, yeah, Jesus looked like a little what's the name monkey? Of that? A gibbon? Is a gibbon the right thing? Jesus looks like a gibbon, right? No, I don't think so.
That's so funny.
So the job just really got to me, and I remember being stressed out, and and we can get into that later too. I had other stuff going on in college, and you know, I got sick for a period of time, and I actually had to take a whole year off of school.
Oh, wow.
And when I came back, I was like, I don't want to not take the thing that I want to do seriously. So I'm going to try to look for every opportunity that I can to kind of delve deeper into my passion for whatever this thing is, see where it leads. And at that, I was just like, I'm going to apply to things that I was afraid to before.
Hell yeah.
And I applied for a job, even though I was still in school. I applied for a job as an assistant animator at MTV Animation. Remember them?
Yeah. Oh, cool. So that is cool.
So my first job was as an assistant animator on a show called Friday, the Animated Series, which was based on the Friday movies. Right? Okay. With and classic. The TV show, not so much, but the movies.
I love the movie.
And that was kind of my foot into the door. You know, at that point, I was already like a professional, and I was a junior in college.
Nice. Yeah. So that was your first. So, how long did you stay in New York before you made the jump to Los Angeles?
That is a great question. My wife's gonna love that you asked this. So, also going to SVA was okay. I mean, let me back up. I will tell you this. I'm going to tell you the story of like a moment that changed my perspective on anything. And Ian, you already know this because we've talked about this. You know?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mentioned it, like I got sick, you know, it was in the middle of my sophomore year of college, where I was like, hey, I don't feel so good. I kind of have this constant like headache, and it really feels bad. And I could notice like my face changing a bit, and like I would pass out and I would lose like a couple hours, 30 minutes. And I was like, something's wrong with me. And I ended up going to the doctor for like a couple times, and they were like, oh, you have like this like bone tumor that's growing around your brain, and we need to remove it. And it was like, oh, okay, well, what's that gonna take? And they're like, well, we're gonna have to cut half of your skull off on the top and then replace it with titanium. and we're going to split the other part of it, put it back together. It's going to be about like 9 to 11 titanium plates, a bunch of screws, whatever. The recovery process is probably going to take about 6 to 8 months, if you come back from that, and it was a real kind of like wake up moment for me, because in the middle of everything, figure out who you want to be, figure out what his life is like going to be as an adult, figure out whatever else. I had a real like a talk with these doctors where they were like, you might not actually wake up from the surgery. You have to understand that,
Wow.
like,
That's so scary, dude. Oh my
as
God. And you were like,
as
yeah.
like a 20-year-old kid, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like
That's
what do you,
so scary.
and for me it was like it changed my outlook on everything. Like I've become
Mm-hmm.
maybe more decisive, more
Mm-hmm.
like
Mhm.
and so anyways, when I was like, when I came back from that illness, I was like, well, I don't want to go back and do this. I didn't want to become an art restorer. I didn't go to college to become an art restorer.
Right.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. And then, as we talk, you'll see that this little ripple has reverberated through every facet of my life. So why did I stay in New York? Well, I was about to graduate school, and I lived like a monk probably my last year of school. It's just
Whoa.
it's like my thesis film. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to date anybody. I don't want to hang out with friends. I just want to draw. I'm just drawing. This is my shot to make the best. And my thesis film is crap, by the way. I'm like, this is my chance to make the best thing I can possibly make, and I gave it my all. And then
Wait, I have a really stupid question. You have a very inspirational story, but does that mean that when you go to the airport, is it like that part of your,
it's a great question. I get stopped probably more because I'm bearded and a little more tan than
no way.
than
Because of your skull.
and then bring up the skull. I think
That's crazy.
because my skull, it doesn't have magnetic metal in it. It's titanium.
Oh, okay.
So I think the word is ferrous, non-ferrous metal. So like I can't stick a magnet to the side of my head. Right?
Okay.
So
Sorry, that was really silly, but I had to know.
It's a great question. Like if you look really closely, there's a screw in the side of my forehead. Anyways, the high school yearbook couldn't kill me, and neither could the brain tumor.
Yeah, I wanted to bring back the high school. Yeah,
I'm still kicking, and so I was about to graduate SVA, and I was like, yeah, my film's almost done. I can start like talking to people again and see like maybe I can start dating somebody. And literally the first person I started talking to, I was like, she's the one. I love her so much, and I'm gonna marry her.
Aww.
That's so sweet.
When I met her, I was like, yeah, I guess I'm gonna stay here until she graduates college, and then I'll move out to California. So I stayed a couple extra years because I wanted to wait for my girlfriend, Kate, who is now my wife, to graduate. So that, and yeah, I mean, it's worked out pretty good for me so far, but
yeah, I think
I don't know about for her, but yeah, that's why I stayed in New York.
No, so was there did she also like want to move out to LA? So is that what you guys were like, all right, we're gonna go out together, or did you get a job and then go out?
What's funny? You think that I would have been smart enough to like, how do I figure out the best way to say this? 2008 was an interesting time for all of us. Right?
Yeah, I remember that.
And so I graduated in 07, 08 happened, 09 was the year that like she graduated and I was looking to move out here to California, right? So we got married in 2010, right? But 2009 was when I really started to look into moving out here. But at the time, all the studios in New York had pretty much closed. They were like, we're not. They were like, it's either commercial houses, or they had moved all their main productions to LA, or they were like, look, we're only hiring the most seasoned of seasoned people because we don't really have a need.
Right.
We don't really, there's all these people who are unemployed. It was a really tough time. Not that
we're going through something a little similar.
Yeah.
Only the second time that I can remember in my adult life. But the interesting part was, Katie always believed in me. And so when I told her this was my dream, she was like, yeah, we're gonna do it, and she she was like, yeah, I'm in, that's what I want to do. So like she believed in me. We moved out here. I can tell you more fun stories about LA when we get to that part, but she ended up being, and she's the senior design manager for Disney Girls Princess Dolls.
That's so
And
cool.
yeah,
Whoa.
and
awesome.
that's her dream job, and she didn't even know that she could do that. And so like moving out to California worked out for her too,
Oh, so nice.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so yeah, look, you guys have drawn 15 things. I'm over here
No,
blabbering.
you do no.
That's
This is
the point of the show.
Yeah. I get to listen to your awesome stories.
Yeah.
And I can just doodle and then but like don't worry. This is
So
but go ahead, sorry.
no,
cut you off.
no, you didn't cut me off. I cut you off. I didn't.
Oh, sorry.
What
Go
was
ahead.
what was the first gig that you got here in LA?
Yes, great question. I was hoping you would ask that. It's gonna bring us back to this Miss Teats thing over here.
Yeah.
This is great. I'm not drawing that,
Puga.
Miguel. I'm not doing it, Miguel. I might do it, Miguel. I don't know if I can, but I'm gonna try.
I'm gonna draw Miss Teats for all of us if you don't want to draw her.
Well, I gotta by the way, just a quick shout out. I gotta give a shout out to Miguel because without Miguel I would not have met Adam. So
I love Miguel.
So Miguel's a good buddy. And
he was on the podcast as well, episode 163. Everybody check it out. It's a really fun episode. We talk a lot about the Casa Grande movie.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But
I simply adore Miguel. He is wonderful. He's a close friend. We hang out and nerd about comic books and old ones and pour over artwork, and we haven't worked together since then. But so there was I don't know if you know who Fred Seibert is.
Yeah.
Fred Seibert
oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Fred, I worked in New York for Frederator Studios.
Very cool.
And Fred, I happened to have like the desk outside his office, and we ended up just talking about things that we like, which was jazz and blues and music and art and whatever. And he, for whatever reason, took a liking to me, and I told him like I want to move out to California, and he actually gave me a bunch of names, which was like the first nice thing anybody had done for me.
That's great.
Fred was just like, okay, here's the people you need to talk to at Nickelodeon, here's the people over here. And so I went and I interviewed at a bunch of companies, and I kind of got the same response from every company except for one, which was, we're not hiring right now. It's not a good time. There's no shows picking up. It's, the industry's bad. It's 2008, man. The subprime
2008.
Yeah. 2009, the subprime mortgages have been rolled into a debt relief package, and all people are buying them up, and that's crashed the whole economy, man. So yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
So I got one response, and it was from a place called 6 Point Harness, which is a small indie studio. And I was like, yeah, that's all I ever worked at in New York, really. MTV feels like an indie studio. World Leaders Noodle Soup felt like an indie studio. All these places on the East Coast pretty much are tiny little indie houses. And so, now we just draw whatever. Oh, you drawing a muscly man for me? Whoever's drawing a muscly man.
It's just what naturally comes to me. So I don't know what's wrong with me. But
I've lost my train of thought. Bewitched by this muscular He-Man here.
6 Point Harness.
6 Point Harness.
Yeah.
Oh, so 6 Point Harness. And for those people who are listening, looking for a first job and going like, what am I going to do? Don't turn your nose up at going to a smaller studio or an indie studio, or just getting your foot in the door, doing whatever you can do. And I'm going to tell you a story about this studio, which is the craziest thing to this day, right? The people that worked there in 2010, which is when I started, right? Are like all the people at the top of the animation industry.
Yeah.
All worked in this tiny garage that like smelled like skunk again. And
weirdly enough,
that guy
I love
was
that this episode we're like being very mysterious about the smells.
Well, maybe it's because I have a 5-year-old, but like I don't swear. I don't like, you probably noticed that. I'm very wholesome. Yeah, very wholesome.
Until you get a few drinks in him, and then he's
and then I'm still wholesome. Just a little more giggly. What was I gonna say? Oh, so
I agree. All the people these small indie studios.
It's crazy. So I made these like lifelong friendships out of the most insanely talented, wonderful. We were all like 24, 25, 21. We were all like young kids at the time. And it's like one of my dear friends, Ed Scudder, went on to become the.
Oh, no way. Ed is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then she started as an intern, but now she's off directing movies. Lin Wang, right?
Yes.
Or Andrea Fernandez, who is the art director on all the Ninja Turtles stuff. And she also art directed Unikitty. And her husband, Trevor, who's just like an absolute beast of a character designer. The guy who was answering phones, Chad Quant, went on to become an Emmy-winning writer.
Heck yeah. I think what's so cool about that story is that it really shows that you have to stick around and not give up, and that it takes time to move up and like get to these like really good positions. And I just wanted to highlight that because sometimes, you know, like as a kid, you could be like, I want to direct right now, you know, and it's like, no, yeah, like you said, you start at like 6 Point Harness, and then like 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, you're like, wow, like then you're like in your full swing of your career. So cool.
Yeah, it's and I'm sure I left out people. If anyone's listening to this and I worked with you at 6 Point, because I didn't get you. Miguel worked at 6 Point. That's why we started here, right? Like the roll call of insane talent, and it was just like, if you were to like, if that studio owner was to like keep those people, it could have been the next Walt Disney. You know, like you have that amount of talent under one roof in a small period of time. Just absolutely insane. But we all spread our wings, went our different ways, and we still hang out all the time. And that's like my close friend group. Even the person who created the show Good Vibes, Brad Abelson, I still hang out with Brad.
So cool.
And he's off. I don't know if I can say what he's doing. I think it's announced. He's co-directing the Shrek 5 movie.
Oh yeah, that's been announced.
Yeah.
Everybody was losing their minds at that little teaser.
Why is Shrek so round now?
I was like, it looks great. Yeah, controversial opinion. Yeah, you heard it here first. I like the new Shrek. I don't give a fudge. We're keeping it PG, baby.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
But
it's funny, yeah, because I saw the designs and I thought it looked good, and I thought that people would be I don't know. You can't ever predict the
we worked on people. Thundercats.
Yeah,
so we thought, you know, oh wow, everybody's gonna love this, and then the internet. Actually, people did love it, but the internet made sure. People did, yeah. But the internet made sure to tell us how much they didn't like it, and I was like, all right.
What did you do with Lion-O? Why isn't he so?
It's so funny.
Lion-O's not allowed to have fun. He just goes like, you know, Tigra, fetch my sword. Yeah. I actually haven't seen the new one. I'm really sorry, guys.
Oh, it's okay.
You don't have to watch every single cartoon. That's too much work, even for professionals.
Or a father.
Well, you know what's funny? I probably watch less cartoons than the average person who works in animation. You know, just because I didn't grow up really watching a ton of media. I still don't watch a lot of TV. It freaks people out. Like.
How did you? Okay, so that's going to be really interesting. So, because I relate to that story that you're saying, and for me, I feel like I was able to kind of catch up with my lack of knowledge of just, let's say, film, movies, and cartoons in general, because I read so much manga, and I feel like manga is very it's storyboarded in a way that is very close to just like storyboards in general. And I don't know for you how first part of the question, did you feel like you had to catch up specifically in regards to storyboards? And second part of the question is how did you do that? How did you catch up, quote unquote?
Sorry, I was busy drawing a terrible Mrs. Teets over here. Can you give me that one again? Second part, how did I catch up?
And first part was because I also grew up not really watching a lot of like movies or cartoons, and I read a lot of manga, and I was wondering if you had something like this, if you had something like another avenue that helped you kind of, you know, in a roundabout kind of way, still learn storyboards, you know?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about storyboards was, again, it wasn't my first choice. I thought I was going to go into to be an animator, right? That's what I wanted to go to school to be. I
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah,
studied
yeah.
animation, and I was like, yeah, that's clearly what I'm going to end up doing. And I kind of fell into storyboarding because I realized that's kind of where my heart was. I could tell a story about that, but I think maybe growing up, not being able to watch TV, but being able to use my allowance to buy comics and read as many comics as I possibly could, that my brain was just sort of naturally wired that way. Like it was more like connected with pictures and words at the same time. That was the type of media that I enjoyed. And yeah, you're right, Ian. I did rebel against my mom, and then sometimes I would sneak home from school and I would flip on the TV before she came home from work, and I'd catch an episode of DuckTales, and I'd feel like a total
I love it.
yeah. And be like, yeah. And catch me there, 13 years old, being like, life is like an airplane.
She'd be like, what's that song you're singing?
Where did you learn that? That's not one that I know. And
I just made it up, Mom.
It's Green Day. Everyone likes Green Day.
It's Green Day.
They sing songs about airplanes and whatever.
I would love to hear a Green Day cover of the DuckTales theme song.
I would love that too.
Let's get on that Green Day.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just non sequituring into everything here.
This is how you do it, baby. This is the best part of it.
All right. Well, then, let's ride the express train to nowhere. I got
you. So what I will find interesting, or what I would like to hear about is your journey from storyboarding into more lead roles. And also the challenges that kind of came with, like, your transition from like a storyboard artist to a head of story, and now going from head of story to co-director.
And how do these conversations even look like? Is it something that that you as a person have to initiate? Is it something that you kind of like hopefully think somebody will notice me? Like, what's how does that work?
As luck would have it for me, I'm the second one, where people kind of took notice of the stuff I was doing, and for whatever reason, were just like, I think that you would be right for that position both times, So when I made the jump to head of story, it was on a movie called Orion in the Dark. And Sean Charmatz.
Yeah, that one's on Netflix for everybody.
Great movie.
It just won the Annie for best whatever the best the best thing of all time.
The best movie.
I think it was like best special production, because it was a movie that was made for a different not for the big screen. So they categorized it differently, but I'm really proud of that one. And Sean is really funny and really cool guy, and he knew my work from seeing the stuff I was doing on a movie called The Bad Guys.
Oh yeah.
Oh heck yeah, that's a great movie too. It's so fun.
Yeah, I should draw that instead of Mrs. Teets. Can I do that next?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Why are you guys torturing me with Miss Teets?
Miguel,
get you. I bet you he looked and he was just like, oh, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make him draw the.
He's cackling right now.
He's like, you're not getting any good drawings out today. No. You're gonna draw Miss Teets.
Yeah.
So
he did that on purpose. Oh yeah,
he definitely did. Because that's what you do to your friends. Where was I? I was working on a movie called The Bad Guys, and I had worked on one called Crudes 2 before that, and I had done some other stuff. Then I was at DreamWorks, and it was a goal of mine. It was like I would love to see what that is like, and I was like if it comes, it'll come. But I just want to do the best scenes that I can, and just try to make the best thing that I can. And Sean was like, hey, we became friends, and he ended up going off to direct this thing, and he was like, I have this Charlie Kaufman script, and it's one of a kind. it's a work of genius. But it is a Charlie Kaufman script, and it's, you know, big, and it needs to be wrangled, and it needs to figure out where it's going. And the studio, for whatever reason, wants to make it, but they want to make it for Netflix, and they want to make it for less money, and they want to make it in less time. So we had a lot of, you know, creative challenges to make something as grand as the vision of Charlie Kaufman fit into that, you know, little box. But he was like, if you believe in it and you believe you can do it, come on, be my head of story. And he asked, and I was flattered, and I didn't have to think about it for very long. And you know, that movie, it was really difficult to make because of those constraints, but it was also a lot of fun, and I'm really proud of the end result. And in some ways I feel like we might have proved, like, yeah, you can make a movie for less money, for cheap, and less time. And I'm like, no, that wasn't the point. The point was, you know, like, not every movie has a Charlie Kaufman script, you know?
Right.
That's a really good point you're making, because recently I tweeted, I quote tweeted Katsuka, that Katsuka shared a bunch of budgets from European movies, from $1 million all the way up to $10 million, which is very low when you compare to the median. I would say, from the top of my head, I think Despicable Me is a quote unquote lower budget movie, but it's still 60 million, and I think the kind of median ballpark is anywhere between 100 million to sometimes all the way up to 250 million. And so that the whole tweet was about, like, oh, look, in Europe we can make things really cheap. But then I quote tweeted, and I was like, well, in America, in the US, a lot of the time the scripts are not locked, and sometimes there's no script at all. So it's very hard to get a budget squeezed so tight when you're writing the movie as you're making it. And then there was like other like bullet points to it, like there's less marketing in Europe than there is here in the US, etc. But
they have healthcare. You know, their healthcare isn't tied to their job.
The government pays for that. The government pays for the healthcare, so you don't have to. And also in the case of Flow, which is a silent movie, you don't have to pay for a voice cast. But all the way back to talking about Orient in the Dark, is that feel free to answer this any way that you can answer this. But from the script that you had, how locked was the script? How much could you change from it? Were you expected to change it at all? Were you expected to stick really close to it? Like I said, feel free to.
You know, I think on that one, more than any script that I've worked on, it was kind of more solved, you know, because it's Charlie Kaufman, you know, he's giving you his full vision. And, you know, we kind of had this rule where it's like, when in doubt, go back to the Kaufman, you know, and we go, okay, we wanted to make a Kaufman movie. We didn't want to, you know, we wanted to make the best version of that, you know, because we had fallen in love with all of the stuff that he had made, whether it was Adaptation or Eternal Sunshine, or the list goes on and on and on, you know, like he's a brilliant writer. And when I read that script, I was like, this is so there, you know, it needs shaping, and it needs, you know, and there are things that had to change because of budgetary constraints and, you know, creative constraints and that sort of stuff. But as a whole, you know, probably interestingly enough, the one example of something I've worked on in my career that was more locked than anything else, you know. And, you know, that doesn't mean that we didn't have to make a ton of changes and get additional writing support and write new scenes. And, you know, of course we had to do that. Of course, you know, that's just the way it goes. But as a piece of writing, it's closer than almost anything that I've worked on, you know, to the end result, you know.
That's super cool. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, that was interesting to see how much a feature, the story takes shape over the course of 2-3 years, you know, and how much it can change.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That is interesting. Should we ask some questions from the guests? Or not from the guests, but from
the listeners.
Yeah.
Let's do it, because we have a lot of good questions, and I want to make sure we can cover some of them. From our patron, Crass, he asks, have you noticed how many story artists from TV have been getting into feature animated film lately, especially at Sony?
Great question. Sorry about the what was that guy from DC who had like the weird laser beams that went sideways? DC Comics. It was like it was their version of Thanos, and I'm blanking on it. It was blue.
Oh my god, Darkseid?
Doomsday. No, Dark Side.
Dark Side. We got there.
Yeah, we got there. This is a great question. I feel like this is one that people always ask. What is the difference between TV and feature? What is it like working in feature? What's it like working in TV? How do people cross over? Mm-hmm. And I think there's so many different ways to answer this question. Sony is different than most animation studios because they let me staff my own crew when I came over as a head of story. They were like, look, you don't have to take people that are here just because they're here. We want you to pick the right people for this film because this film is going to be different than anything we've made before. And so I got to look at a bunch of portfolios and determine, based on the type of skill sets that I could see necessary for the story we were trying to tell, just picking the best people. A meritocracy, right? Mm-hmm. And some of those people were from television and some were from film. And that didn't really matter to me which discipline someone was from, as long as I could see what I was looking for in their work. And what we said earlier about trying to grow your people, I almost like it more when I can see like something that I want to bring out in somebody that they might not even see in their own work. And I don't know what it is about me. I find like that makes me so happy. And so I've tried to do that to most of the crew that have come on to the film,
I mean, I can attest to this and I will say, I also will attest to the skill set growing. I don't know. And I would say I unlocked my humor more, and that was a lot of fun.
I just want to wrap up with what you were saying, Ian. The humor was always there. The charm was always there. I think as artists, there's always a fear, like, because we are doing it for money, right? And we're doing it for, in some ways, literally and metaphorically, approval.
Right.
Right? Like, I need someone to approve this. And if it's no good, do they approve of me? Am I a sham? Is life a lie? Like, I think and the best thing that we can do is go like, no, man, unlock that. The reason that you're here is because you're killer. Like, we want to get that version of the person who's not afraid to make mistakes, because in that freedom, that's where the gold is. If you're making something that you think is awesome, other people might think it's awesome too, but if you're making something that you think is safe, and that, like, because you're like, this is what somebody else wants, this is how they're gonna, then no, like, that never leads to the best work, and we've that's my philosophy, and I'm sticking to it.
That's so awesome. I know I jumped out a bunch, but hey, I got to hear the last bit and it was great.
Did you want to do it like a quick? Could you do like a 20 questions lightning round?
I could do that.
What was a particularly hard scene to storyboard that turned out great? Can you do that in one sentence? Just kidding.
The heist scene from Bad Guys 1, because creatively I fought against the idea of having a fart joke in a film.
I love it.
Story for another day.
How do you write a flash forward type of story? Example, like that One Cheese episode in Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah, so I may have never seen the Phineas and Ferb episode, so apologies to the...
oh, sorry, that was from Bun Bun Shark.
Apologies to Bun Bun Shark. Lightning round answer, I think that you just need to be cognizant of the beginning, middle, and end of your story. Make sure that it makes sense, and make sure that, how you're intercutting those two timelines. Like Orion in the Dark was a great example, where it was not only like two storylines, it was actually three storylines at the same time, and that information unfolded in a very natural way. We struggled with it, but you kind of have to have faith in your audience that they can follow along and that your story will flow.
Perfect. Beautiful. Should we do more, V, or?
There's one that I like from Bun Bun Shark on YouTube. They asked, do you have any recommendations of online writers, storytellers group newbie can join? I think definitely look up on Discord and Reddit. There's a lot of like writers group there. I think improv is a great way to find other writers, and I also think this is I should get a sponsorship from the writing pad, but it's a program that I really love, and I've met a lot of cool writers through it. So Hudson B. Hey Hudson, thanks for always asking questions. Asks, what is your favorite thing you have worked on, Adam?
You know, I'm going to be biased. I'm going to say it's Goat. Catch it in 2026. You know, I feel like it's amazing. I feel truly lucky to have worked on so many things I can say that about. I'm biased because I have to wake up tomorrow and go back to work on this movie. So if I didn't believe it's the best thing I've worked on, what's the point? You know? So yeah, it's Goat.
Oh, cool. On Instagram, E. Kovacs asks, what advice would you give to aspiring storyboard artists?
Watch the type of things that you want to make. Figure out how they made them. If that's reverse storyboarding, if that's waiting to the credits and going like, hey, these 3 storyboard artists worked on this, and I'm going to go look up their Instagram and I'm going to figure out how they draw and how they approach things. Figure out the stuff that makes your brain sparkle, and then go figure out how people make it. That's it.
That's perfect. I wish I was like I wish I heard that before, way before in my life. Howdy the Reclaire on Instagram asks, I know.
Howdy there, Claire.
Oh my God, thank you.
Claire.
Howdy the Re. I know storyboarding digitally is the new standard, but do you ever board on paper?
All the time. I was fortunate enough to just catch the end of the paper wave, and now, you know, clearly the Cintiq was battling me tonight. But I think some of the best ideas that I have are on paper because they're direct. And so when I'm trying to think of how to make something iconic, clear, direct, I do it on paper.
Yeah, it's hard to beat paper. It's hard to beat paper.
I know. It's just like you can get it out. It's not as precious, I think. I think the Control Z function has broken our brains a little bit. So just having to put an idea down and you can't erase it. It's like, all right, well, I guess we're going. I try not to use the Control Z. I don't know if you look at the 3 drawings that I've done, and like I've used it like a couple times. You know, I try not to.
Yeah. I've started using E, pressing the key E instead of Control Z. So like it forces me to erase instead of undoing.
Yeah. Wait, can I ask this next question? It's my favorite one.
Okay, go.
This is from Hank Humble.
Humble Hank.
What is the best kind of fish for eating and best for petting?
Okay, interesting. Okay, so I would say that, you know, fish that are, I'll go backwards, right? Fish that are friendly, I would say there's a cichlid called a frontosa, which is more like a dog. They have a large frontal lobe, and there's a couple of varieties of those that they probably would let you pet them. I had a koi pond when I was a teenager, and the koi were friendly enough. They would, you know, nibble your fingers if you stuck them into the pond. So yeah, koi or frontosa, nice for petting. And best type of fish to eat, that's difficult because I really like sushi. So that's like if I had to choose like my diet for the rest of my life, I'd be like Samurai Jack, you know, in that episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Japanese food and it's just raw fish all the time. I don't care if I get mercury poisoning. I'd be it's fine. So,
I'm ready to die from
ready to die from mercury. You know, so best but lightning round, top of my head, I would go with like fatty Toro tuna belly.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh, you're making me hungry.
Yeah.
I'm getting hungry.
Yeah. You thought that was a silly question? I did not.
I'll just think the other, I mean, unless there's one that you really wanted to ask, but I feel like we kind of covered the topics from the other questions through the interview.
Sure. Yeah. Unless you want me to lightning round them, I'm cool with whatever you want.
Oh, well, maybe if you have the crystallized answer for Alistair on Newgrounds, they ask, what is your advice on collaboration?
Check your ego out the door. Know that collaboration is a partnership, right? And the best ones come from just basically putting yourself aside. you know. So when you're collaborating with somebody, you really are asking them to be an equal partner. That's it.
Beautiful, mate. We love it.
We should end with that because it's really good. It's a really good answer and it's inspiring, and I think it's a great way to leave the podcast.
Yeah.
Not
bad for a Robin in his little green tights.
Yeah.
Killing it. You're Batman. We all know it. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm Batman. I can't even do the voice. Tyree can do it better than me. He always goes meow 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 like that.
This was such a fun episode. It was so great, and I feel like I learned a lot as well. And with that, that's the end of this creative block. Adam, thank you so much for being our guest and sharing your story.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully people will tune in and find this interesting. Yeah.
I think they will. This is a good one. And thanks to our listeners. Follow us on social media at CRTV Block, where we ask the drawing prompts and questions to our guests. Huge thanks to our editor, Clements, for editing the podcast, Marco for helping us produce the show, Ibuka for creating the short clips we've been putting out.
If you love our show, you can support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews and access to our Discord community. Another great way you can support the podcast is to like, subscribe, share it, comment. All these great things helps us get more eyes on it. Click the link in the description of this episode to follow Adam on all his socials and to find our Patreon. I've been your host, V.
And I've been your guest host, Ian. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week. Well, I won't, but somebody else will.
Bye.
Bye-bye.